playing 1 hour a game, especially something as Catan, makes you get to know that person much more than endless hours of just conversing. It brings out the real nature normally.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
This week on Masters of Scale, I talk with Ben and Guido Teuber. They're brothers who grew up playing the hit board game Katan because 30 years ago, their father Klaus invented it. Now, the brothers run the business of Katan with more than 45 million games sold worldwide. We'll talk about why I think this game, where players pretend to develop an island by gathering resources, building roads, and forming trading alliances, is the best board game for entrepreneurs.
The publishing company was so overwhelmed because they got all of these orders. They thought it was an April Fool's kind of joke too late in the year when they got these orders. And then the retailer said, no, we mean it. We want that order. What we then didn't anticipate was the global success that it is now, 30 years later.
I'm Reid Hoffman, your host. Ben and Guido's father, Klaus, invented the board game, originally called Settlers of Catan, when the boys were young. They've spent a lifetime in the family business of scaling the game and its philosophy of succeeding through strategic collaboration. Players compete to cultivate an island, farming, mining, and expanding their territory. But to do so, they need to trade strategically and build alliances. I think we could all use more practice with that in our lives and businesses.
This is Masters of Scale.
So, Ben, Guido, welcome to Masters of Scale. I've been looking forward to this for a number of years. As you both know, I'm a huge fan of Settlers. Probably first coming to your attention with the Wall Street Journal story, front page story about how much I like Settlers, which I thought was rather amusing, but I was perfectly happy given how much I like what you guys do. And so, why don't we start with kind of what your earliest memories of the game were?
Well, first of all, thanks so much for having us here. It's an absolute pleasure. I've been looking forward to this for a very long time. My first memory with Catan is, I think one of the first prototypes must have been 93. And it was handcrafted. The game was released in 95. So it was handcrafted by our dad, and he hand-painted it. I do remember wanting to collect these resources, not want to give them away, but they were so nice. And yeah, a very, very vivid memory.
Yeah, and then for me, there's one picture that we have, and it shows me with full hair, long full hair, unimaginable now, and it's in a ski hut in Austria, and it's Benny, my dad, and we had a family around, and it was the prototype was on the table at a stage where I think it was nearly finished, and that is though something that's the most memorable before it was published.
So one of the things I'm curious about is how did it play a role in your family dynamic? Because, at least my experience playing Settlers, and I don't know how universal this is, but one of the classic parts of negotiation is like, no, don't trade with Tom. Tom's closer to winning, or Tom betrayed you on the last one, or that kind of thing. And I'm curious, obviously because it's a family business, how did Settlers play a role at like the dining table or the living room table and the evolution of the family dynamic?
I wanted to win for sure. It's one of the values that you have when growing up with a board game inventor as a dad, that you also start to lose learning very early. But back then I wanted to win, and I was very ambitious. And I do know that it were tough fights who will win.
And it's a running gag in the family where we have the saying, Benny always wins. And it's nearly true. Benny, you do win a lot. And it was always a fun little rivalry, especially between you and our dad. And I have to say, for me, bringing Catan over to the United States in 97, it was quite a different cultural experience, the way people play Catan in Germany versus the United States. And I think it's people take the kid gloves off here in the United States more.
Can you go into any more depth on what you found in the kind of the the cultural parallels and dissimilarities between the kind of the U.S. gameplay and the German gameplay?
If you ask our dad, he would have answered something in the interviews like, Catan it's a cooperative, almost cooperative game. In the end, you'll still have constructed something. It's win-win. It's like, even if you don't lose, you still have 8 victory points, beautiful settlements. And then in the comments, in the US comments, you could read, well, clearly he doesn't know what game he created. He should come to the US and play with us because that's not how we play it here. And that was funny for us too, because we really believe that. And it seems there are different opinions. And if you go to the World Championships and you have the 60 national champions competing, you'll discover a lot of different play styles.
So, I don't know how many people, who are listening to this have actually played. I highly recommend it. It's one of the reasons why I'm here talking to you guys. But précis of what Settlers of Catan is.
You have an island, it's uninhabited, you build settlements, you build cities and roads. And the more you build, the more resources you gather. You trade those resources with your opponents or fellow players, depending on where you come from and what's your cultural experience, if they're more like enemies or fellow players. And then you'll build with the resources. And the more you build, the more likely you're reaching 10 victory points first and win the game.
So part of the thing, the way that I got, kind of so hooked was that I thought it was and still think it is the best game that mirrors a bunch of things that are more true about like entrepreneurship. And it's partially because you have partial knowledge of the common set. I mean, maybe you've been tracking exactly what resources are in the hands, but even then that can trade out with a robber, grabbing one or other kinds of things. You have collaboration, which is an essential thing in addition to competition. And then there were some really unique elements that I'd never seen before, like the tiles, being randomly put out. You never play on the same board twice.
We've been very lucky to have had such a great start in Germany, but in the United States, it was really a challenge to explain to people because you have to play. I mean, even if you're super excited about explaining it, you have these resources and you trade them. And then once you've traded them, you can build stuff. And then a lot of people would have fallen asleep by the time you've gotten to build stuff. But when you play it and explain it to someone and you see it in action and you immediately see the dopamine hit when people started trading, and all of a sudden it's so important to have the ore, and why does no one want your sheep? And so it's really fun to experience, and it's just one of those you just have to experience, and you can't really explain it. That recipe of our family in terms of personalities and how that plays out, how may that may have informed the development of Catan, right? Our family, it was interesting. We have definitely different representation from the sort of the planners, the combative ones, the diplomats, the ones who sort of kind of, our dad was often in the situation where he played the game, but then also checked out like how everyone reacted and what sort of the vibe was. And he was thinking at the same time, while he was moving the pieces, he was thinking about, well, could this be optimized? So there was always like something in the back of his mind, this machine that was playing and where he played the game and then also kind of developed or tweaked it in his mind as we were playing. And I won't say who did what, but for instance, it's also like sometimes you are different when you play a game versus how you are in life. So in my case, for instance, I see myself a bit more of someone, a bridge builder, someone who's a diplomat. And yet my mom has commented often that, why are you so ruthless in this game? I don't even recognize who you are.
It's like, who are you? She said that in one game. That's true.
Well, and this is actually one of the things that I find, kind of amusing, because it's like, for example, a common trait in games that I'm playing. So like, for example, if Ben, you and I were playing a lot, the people I play with, they'd say, oh, Ben wins all the time. Don't trade with him, trade with me. Right? Like there's a whole kind of psychological, even the kind of the multi-game player side that goes to it, which is among the many things that I love about kind of where the game has more of an entrepreneurial texture or kind of a real world texture, because it plays into all of those dynamics.
I think playing 1 hour a game, especially something as Catan, where you have the social skills also, it makes you get to know that person much more than endless hours of just conversing, because you can, represent anyone. But playing actually brings out, Guido, I know this doesn't speak to your earlier example, but it brings out the real nature normally.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So when did each of you get formally involved in the family business, and how did that come about? And I guess, Ben, we'll start with you.
So I studied psychology, and then I studied management, and I loved both worlds growing up. And I never really, really intended to join the family business. It was very open, and since our dad was a little bit forced by his dad into his business, he was like, you guys do whatever you want. And, Guido was in the company already by then. And I felt like this would be wonderful to work with a family. Guido and I sometimes compare it to, like an additional family member, because it's now 30 years, I'm 40. So, it's such a long time in our lifespan, and at some point it was just this is right now, because it contains my love for psychology and as well for management to have this company, and kind of feels like a startup still somehow to us, because we make so many new things every year. And at some point I was just convinced that this is right. And then I entered the family business, and actually haven't regretted one day. I love waking up, going to work.
Yeah, for me, it was a similar experience in the sense that it kind of extended from childhood to the teenager years, just being around games in the family, into bringing the game with me to the United States. It had been published in 1996 by Mayfair Games, and then I emigrated to the United States. First was here studying international relations, and always wanted to do that something in that arena, diplomacy. And I had a chat with my dad, and at that time he said, "Hey, kind of looks like Catan is here to stay. There's different publishers in different countries, and they're interested in the license. And I really need someone who can coordinate and manage the sort of everything, the business part of that." And so I was still in graduate school, but I said like something went off, and I was like, "Oh, this is actually it. This is diplomacy. This is international relations, kind of just with the publishers. I love the game." And it was a connection to my dad, to the family. So I said, like, why don't we try it out? I would love to do it. I always likened Catan as a passport. It was my personal passport. I could whenever have the game with me, and I knew other people were playing it at conventions or in board game cafes and so on. It was really cool to connect to people that way, and you were immediately part of a community. And at the same time, it was also connection back, a bridge to Germany. So I also never regretted it, and it fulfills me every morning. I wake up, I just have to pinch myself and say, this is really sort of a continued dream I'm living, and we're living. And now Benny and I can stay connected that way. And then it just like it does. It's so great to have the business that also then keeps us personally super close across the Atlantic Ocean.
When did your dad first realize that this was going to be a success?
Sure. Yeah. I remember when it just right out of the gate, it was super successful in Germany. And there were several reasons for it. We always figured, well, this game would be very successful among game enthusiasts. And the publishing company was so overwhelmed because they got all of these orders. They thought it was an April Fool's kind of joke too late in the year when they got these orders. And then the retailer said, no, we mean it. We want that order.
And, now we're with like 45 million copies. We would never expected anything like this to happen back then, of course. Reid, we sometimes personally hold you responsible. I don't think there's any interview when they ask us about, like the success in the US, where your name doesn't come up because basically I think you introduced it in meetings and you said, I play it with C-level job interviews because I want to get to know them. And that is just so much the soul of the game and what we talked about earlier. So I guess it started from there and then kind of like went all across the cultural aspects that you like to sports people, to actors, everywhere. So yeah, that was quite surprising for us how that developed.
So what are some of the biggest challenges that the company has faced in scaling? Has it been licensing, marketing, manufacturing?
For me, the most cutting and scary one was piracy. And that was in 2017. So we had Mayfair Games was a great steward. They brought up the game here. They brought it through the ranks, as you said, like they were in colleges. Their marketing was basically from going from event to event, Gen Con and other game events, and just demoing one game at a time. That strategy went really well. And then in 2017, something strange happened on Amazon, seeing the ratings for Katan plummet, where we usually were sort of miffed if we got a 4-star rating. It was like, oh, what did we do wrong? We really have the aspiration to have 5-star ratings because we really want to offer a premium game to players. And what's with these 1 stars? And it turned out that piracy was the culprit, and there were massive. It was a wave of piracy originating mostly from China, and then just coming container loads. And then at some point, every 4th or 5th game was actually a pirated copy from China. And so that was and so it took us 2 years to sort it out, and it was really, that was for me personally the sort of biggest scare and something that set us back for a little bit. We've recovered from it, and it's sort of an forever problem, but it's something that's manageable.
Yeah, I think that was one of the biggest threats. One of the biggest challenges was maybe the organic growth. As just mentioned, in '95, we didn't expect this game to, grow as much. And Katan grew constantly. So it was the first time that we experienced something like that. And more countries came and wanted to publish Katan. Like, one of the reasons why we took away settlers off Katan is that there are declinations in different languages. So in some languages, I think in Czech, it needed to be called Katanu. And in French, they added an E so that the pronunciation is Katan. So otherwise it would have been Katan. But they were like, well, we can do what we want. So like, bringing all this back together has been a really big challenge. We have now 44 languages. It's a constant learning curve, but that challenge was really a remarkable one.
Well, that reminds me, congrats on the 30th anniversary of the game and the new 6th edition.
Thank you.
There's a ton of expansions, right? So there's there's seafarers, there's cities, knights. There's some branded ones, like Star Trek. How much of it was a strategy? How much is it with people coming to you? What have been the learnings of the kind of the breadth of how Katan has expanded?
I would say just in general, we're very selective, and we take great care and to vet everything. And so for Katan, just in very general terms, we make sure that when we license something or even approach the idea, that it has to be a good fit, right? So for example, Game of Thrones and Katan, on the face of it, that is not an obvious fit, right? But we found actually as a team this small area and the Venn diagram where you had an overlap, and then we looked at that, and then it was really intriguing. So there is really great care, and I would say it's always important to offer something, not just a reskin of something with a particular topic, but then to add something that's really unique. And I think that segues well into more the design corner of the company, Benny, which is something that you have taken on. So, but I think in very general terms, it's really something where we excruciatingly carefully measure and vet and think and ponder whether it would be a right fit. And if it's not, then we've said no to a lot of interested parties. Even on the face of it, if it seemed attractive or it's a great brand or IP, we did say no a lot. In some cases, it's really, feel sad, but then you do the right thing because it has to be an organic fit with Catan.
Yeah. And I could show you, I'm not sure if it's dozens of boxes, but a lot of boxes of games who have not made it to the shelf because for multiple reasons, as Guido just said, maybe the fit for the brand wasn't right. There's too much, maybe like winning through war. You can't imagine how many expansion suggestions we have received. Why don't we introduce soldiers and nuclear weapons? And it's soldiers and tanks. And it's like, no, that's not the philosophy of Catan. So that's one, like the brand fit.
Which expansion gets most used? And are there any lessons from that?
My personal favorite lately is Catan Connect. It's a relaunch of 2015's Catan Big Game. We've been making a world record with most people playing Catan in the same time, the same game. So we have had 1,000 people on long benches, and there's one dice roll, and everybody plays the same turn. You have 30 seconds and you're like screaming around like who can trade, and it's very hectic. You're like screaming at your neighbors, friendly screaming, and you can be the winner of a game which is as big as 1,000 people. So this year we'll do another world record in the game fair of Essen in Germany, and we want to have 1,200 people in a much bigger hall. And I've been playing this game in the last weeks and months so much that I have to say it's my absolute favorite at the moment because that mode is so fun.
Yeah, I think that is really has the feeling of a party, and whether it's in a smaller circle with, let's say, 12 or 18 people, or thousands, it's just always like it feels like a mixture of going to a sports event and a concert and playing a board game. Kind of like in that kind of overlap in the Venn diagram. And I have to say, so for me, the most exciting new variant or standalone game is New Energies, actually. And that was actually, Benny, this is really, you can claim that. That's your design. And that has been great. So I went to the Verge in November. I was here in San Jose, Reid, and it kind of the environmental conventions, they are very focused on sort of obviously serious and important topics, but sometimes there is it's nice to have an icebreaker. And so we had a little room where we basically introduced New Energies, and policymakers, people from logistics companies, people who were in the environmental field, they were super interested, and it was actually a lot of fun, and also at the same time educational. We had some guest speakers, and it was really awesome to see a bridge of something where games can literally help to break the ice. And then you had it was wonderful. We learned a lot from that experience, just about renewable energy.
So maybe, Ben, this is the right question for you, because I did mean to ask. I mean, what was the inspiration? What has the response been to the new energy? The climate Catan is obviously very, kind of timely in terms of important issues in society. So what was the inspiration, and what have been the learnings so far?
We had a little scenario called the Oil Springs. It was sent in by a guy called Eric Asadurian. He was, part of World Watch, like Environmental Society. And this is a free little scenario now, which we actually still offer for free download. But we can make a game of this because it's fascinating. And 2015 kind of feels like a different world somehow. But like we started, and we're not scientists. We know very little about it, and I didn't want to make a game where just based on assumptions that I got from reading the news and maybe a little bit of scientific stuff. So I called up Eric Azadorian again and I asked him if he could be my, scientific advisor. And it slowly became really round. And therefore, I really like that game particularly well too.
I have a copy. I've played it a few times. I've been meaning to play it more. Been kind of busy starting some AI companies. But what's been the response so far?
I have to say one of the most beautiful things that I saw was when I scrolled through my LinkedIn page and then I saw Bill Gates playing it. I was like, well, this is insane. But of course, we were thinking about, will there be critical voices as well? And that was one of the reasons why we did ask Eric to make the scientific check. Like, does this make sense? And at the same time, from a game design perspective, it was really important to our dad and me that we didn't just make a dream world where the only way of winning will be green. But we wanted to depict it very realistic. So there is also a way of winning only by fossil power. But that only works if you're the only one and the other players all play green and they don't stop you. So that is, all those dynamics are scenarios of our reality, really. And I think that it is so realistic and that people are, what game did you create there? Like I won with 10 points by building all those fossil power plants. And I was like, yeah, but like, how did the players react?
That discussion almost always emerges after the game, right? Like why did you play dirty, or why did you play focusing only on renewable energies? And then what's really fascinating is that speaking with a lot of policymakers at The Verge who were playing it, they were saying, oh man, this game really shows that often it is sort of in that messy middle, right? Like you want to play on a renewable strategy track, but it's so expensive initially. So the beautiful thing is, I feel that it's educational without the wagging finger, and that people volunteer, and there's almost an eagerness, a motivation to discuss this topic after the game.
What do you guys see as the road ahead? The journey of where Katan is going, where the company is going?
I think a friend of us and happens to be the head of Katan studio in the US always said and keeps saying, we're just getting started. And it's been like one of those sayings now, which is still said, because even after 30 years, there are so many new things that we continue doing, like this world record thing. Like it's a big event. In end of June, we have a different one where the whole world plays Katan in 35 different nations. So it starts, I think, in the US, then we go to Europe, then we go to Asia, and there will be a 24-hour live stream. So that is something new. And it still feels like very much like a startup. There are so many more ways of telling that story and so many more experiences we can create.
Yeah, Benny, beautifully said. I think something that resonated with me that you just said, with to be sort of like a startup and to have that ethos or that emotion and that feeling, I think that keeps it fresh. And whether it's among 3 or 4 players or an indefinite number of players in Katan Connect, that is that is something that I am also very excited to continue building. Just anything that, Benny, as you said, also it has to be harvesting, trading, building, and then that's sort of the core loop. But it is a fantastic vehicle to build community. It's almost like hard to keep up and to explore all the fantastic opportunities that there are to express the brand.
I'm going to remember to ask Bill Gates if he wants to play New Energy with me, since I see him every so often. Guido, Ben, it's been a great pleasure. Yeah. I look forward to playing Katan with you at some point in person.
That would be an absolute pleasure anytime. Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much, Reid. It was wonderful. And yes, we'd love to play again with you.
It was such a treat to talk with Ben and Guido about one of my favorite games. The way they're shepherding the brand first built by their father into the future is fascinating to watch. Katan truly is one of the best ways to get you into the problem-solving mindset that entrepreneurship requires. I hope you find a board and some friends and get all the game's lumber, ore, wheat, and brick you need to build something great while playing together.